Okay, it is like way too hot out here, and I'm just trying my very best not to completely lose my cool. So, today's video is going to be rather simple. I'm going to be talking about the creative process and how that can be infected by inspiration. Now, don't get me wrong, inspiration is an essential part of the process of creating art, but inspiration can also be a crutch that seems to hold many artists back. So recently, I have been inspired myself quite a lot, and by films that have come up in the last couple of months. So the first one being Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, and the other one being Oppenheimer, which is directed by none other than Christopher Nolan. And each and every single time that I came out of those films, I felt incredibly expired. No, incredibly inspired. And simply because watching them do their thing as well as they have, and it being noticed and cherished by the world, is something quite cool, because you've made a piece of art that people connect with, or people want to be a part of, or even just appreciate enough to be fans of. Now, I'm not saying that that's the fame that has driven me to become a filmmaker, but I think it's more so the opportunity to make an impact. You know, many people would choose and decide to either invent or create a machine that the world cannot live without. But I think the goal for many artists is to create things with our minds and our hands that are intrinsically connected to the human experience. And watching these films kind of made me feel like that. But that entire process of being inspired by other people's artwork can also serve as a poison if not watched carefully. So, why am I saying this? Is because I've noticed that whenever I get inspired, I tend to be stuck in my own head, because my brain keeps on coming up with variations or mutations of those different ideas, right? So I start to think to myself, well, how could I come up with that same shot that Christopher Nolan did? Or how could I write a story as emotionally compelling as the one in Spider-Man to the Spider-Verse, the story of Miles, right? And you become so consumed by the idea of making these things that it doesn't go anywhere. And that in and of itself is actually quite pleasing. You know, when you're in that state, there's a certain sense of adrenaline running through you. You're really excited to be part of that process, but ultimately, you don't really end up going anywhere. And that's where it becomes really toxic, is because some people, when they realize, oh no, I've run out of that inspiration, they start looking for more things to be inspired by, therefore creating like an Ouroboros version of things just happening inside your head, you getting more inspiration, and then they're happening in your head all over again. So, as an artist, then it becomes somewhat of a personal responsibility to be able to determine what's going to happen to this inspiration and how am I going to deal with it. Gosh, it is so hot out here. Woo! So, when you do then decide, so that that inspiration does not go to waste, that all that motivation does not simply dissipate, or you don't try to replenish that feeling, is that you take action on it. That idea in your head must become something tangible. It doesn't have to be the most perfect replication of what you just saw, what inspired you, but it can be something heavily inspired by it. And don't worry about it not being necessarily original or reaching that same standard of perfection. So I guess the warning sign to really anybody, I don't think it's restricted to people who just do art, is that don't let inspiration be just the mere end of it all. I think for many of us, it should be the beginning. It should be the thing that pushes us to be able to make more versions of it, to be able to go out of our way and make it even better. And it should not just be a state of mind that we enjoy being in, but also a fuel to continuously push along our creative endeavors. And not to get lost in the whole fantasy of it. It's really nice, and I get it. Heck, I get lost in it all the time. But if we are meant to be of any value, I think as artists, let our work then be the thing that speaks out to us. So, yeah, that's all I had to say. That was me on inspiration, and I hope you guys enjoyed the video and catch you on the next one. Take care.